Oh boy, ATF is big mad. And this is stemming from the decision that dropped Sunday night that I covered yesterday morning, link is above, related to their unconstitutional overreach in the frame and receiver rule. And it was a federal judge that said, yeah, you're not supposed to do that. Congress didn't want that. It's unconstitutional. And added Polymer80 to the groups that have been covered by a preliminary injunction to include the customers of Polymer80. Well, the ATF was very, very angered by this. How dare a judge uphold the Constitution using Bruin and rule against them, right? I mean, the ATF is the ATF, right? All powerful, and there should be no amendments according to the ATF. And on the heels of that decision, yesterday, Polymer80 put 80% frame kits back on sale on their website. And wow, did that anger the folks at the ATF. So much so that they responded today, and they're really, really angry about this. Here is the news release that came out today from ATF for immediate release. The title is ATF issues public safety advisory to all federal firearms licensees, manufacturers, and distributors of firearm parts, components, and accessories. Advisory makes clear that investigation of willful efforts to violate federal laws regulating the manufacture and sale of firearm frames and receivers is an ATF priority. Today, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives issued a public safety advisory to the firearms industry and the public regarding the application of the final rule 2021-05F, definition of frame or receiver and identification of firearms. The advisory highlights the public safety threats addressed by the final rule and makes clear that ATF will continue to prioritize investigations involving willful efforts to violate the provisions of the Gun Control Act as implemented in the final rule, regulating the manufacture and sale of firearm frames and receivers. Let's get a quote from Director Stephen Dettelbach. People who engage in the business of dealing firearms are subject to the Gun Control Act. That means they need to run background checks and sell guns with serial numbers. That is what the Ghost Gun rule is about. Today's advisory is simple. If you are dealing firearms, including items that can be readily converted to a working firearm, ATF is going to make sure that you are following the same laws as everyone else. No doubt that is directed at Polymer80. In April of 2022, the Department of Justice announced the frame and receiver rule that modernizes the definition of a firearm, something the ATF doesn't have the ability to do. The final rule, which went into effect in August of 2022, clarifies that when a partially complete frame or receiver, including one in a parts kit, is readily convertible to a firearm, they are subject to the same regulations as a firearm made by a federal firearms licensed manufacturer. Therefore, those who are engaged in selling these items and kits must be licensed to sell firearms pursuant to the Gun Control Act and comply with all the GCA's requirements, including serialization and running background checks. In determining whether a partially complete frame or receiver, whether sold individually or in a kit, is a firearm, ATF will consider all items made available by the seller, including marketing materials, applying the factors described in the final rule's regulatory text. Some suppliers of partially complete frames or receivers appear to be attempting to willfully circumvent the rule by 1. Selling parts from the type of firearm parts kits covered by the final rule in separate transactions, or 2. Coordinating with other distributors to sell, market, or make available individual parts that, when put together, create a frame or receiver. When considering whether an individual or entity selling partially complete frames or receivers is engaged in activities that would require a federal firearms license, ATF will consider the seller's marketing conduct and materials. This may include the seller provide information on how a partially complete frame or receiver may readily be converted to a firearm, serving essentially as an instruction or a guide. It may also include internet links to templates, jigs, molds, equipment, tools, or other materials that enable ready completion or assembly of the unfinished frame or receiver into a firearm. This is because such materials may affect how readily the part may be converted. When a supplier in such a circumstance fails to comply with the GCA's requirements, that may constitute a willful violation of the GCA. ATF considers such conduct and all willful violations of the GCA an investigative priority. ATF recognizes that most suppliers and the public follow the GCA and its implementing regulations, including the frame or receiver final rule. This advisory is intended to assist the firearms industry and public by providing additional information regarding ATF's investigative priorities related to violations of the GCA as implemented by the final rule. And then they ask you to rat on each other. On screen is the public safety advisory that was referenced in that announcement. And it's a 7-page document that I'll link down below, but it goes into a little more detail than what was just said. For instance, the items it will look at to determine what readily is, and they factor in things like time, ease, expertise, equipment, parts availability, expense, and scope, followed by feasibility. And again, there's a section on there on how to rat on each other. ATF is big time mad that another company, this time Polymer80, has been covered by a judge with their preliminary injunction, meaning that Polymer80 can conduct business as usual and their customers are covered as well. Now, this will be appealed. So I told you if you go to Polymer80's website, you might be able to purchase things right now. But for how long that will be, one may never know, because this case is not over. It's ongoing. This is a preliminary injunction. It's not a permanent injunction. So we'll see what happens. But ATF, there's no doubt in my mind. Now, this might not be directed directly at Polymer80 because of the ruling that came down Sunday night. However, all the stars are aligning. This, to me, is ATF telling Polymer80, we don't care what the judge said. We think you're violating the GCA with these kits, and we're going to investigate you. Now, I could be wrong, but to me, that's exactly what this knee-jerk reaction by the ATF is, because there is absolutely no need for this public safety advisory on a rule that's already been implemented, however, be it illegally and unconstitutionally, until we get the final decision in the courts. The ATF is under the guise that this is it, because this is what Papa Biden wanted, and you can't go making those kits because, you know, freedom and stuff. Guys and gals, it's apparent to me that they are very concerned that they are losing the battle on gun control, and now they're scurrying, them being the ATF and the gun controllers. I am really liking the last 72 hours because they continue to lose, and they're worried about it. I think more are coming. I know more decisions are coming. Just can't tell you when they're coming, because when the judge drops the ruling is when they drop the ruling. But there are more wins coming. And if you want to stay in the know, then subscribe to Guns and Gadgets down below. I'll bring it to you every single day here on this channel. And all you got to do to help out is like the video and share it and subscribe to the channel so that we continue to get the word out. I appreciate each and every single one of you more than you know. Until we see each other again, be safe, stay vigilant, and carry a gun to keep you, your friends, your family, your community safe. And it doesn't matter what ATF thinks. Our rights are our rights. They're unelected bureaucrats who can just beat it and piss off. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.